Welcome to the Monday, January 13th, 2020, first meeting of the year, Beavercreek Board of Township Trustees. Would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have an agenda for this meeting. Are there any changes or alternations on it?
I'll make a motion.
Go ahead.
Do you have any additions, Alex?
No, no.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second. Mr. Kretz?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean? Yes. Ms. Wallace?
Yes. I need a motion to accept the general ledger report.
Go ahead.
I make a motion to approve the general ledger report.
You have to say the amount. Oh, okay.
Just read that line.
Read that line.
We accept the general ledger report in the amount of $378,371.90 for payroll for the 12/18/19 payroll.
Second.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kretz?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Make a motion to accept the general ledger report in the amount of $422,269.91 for the January 2nd, 2020 payroll.
I second.
Mr. Kretz?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes. Make a motion.
I make a motion to accept the payment listed reports in the amount of $654,983.20 for warrants through 12/31/2019.
Second.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kretz?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to accept the meeting minutes from the December 9th, 2019 regular trustee meeting and the December 19th, 2019 special trustee meeting.
Second.
Mr. Kretz?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Abstain.
Okay, thank you. If we have any citizens wishing to speak, you have 3 minutes per person if you'd like to say anything to the Board of Township Trustees. Seeing no one coming up, we'll go with our pre-scheduled speakers. Mr. Zaharia?
Thank you, Board. I'd like to turn it over to our presenters today. We have the entire group up here. I'll let them introduce themselves, but this is a group, PFIC is a group we've been working with since before the levy to look at some alternative funding for Station 65. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Campion.
Thank you very much. Thank you, trustees, and Mr. City Manager or Administrator for inviting me today. We're proud to be here. My name is, for the record, is Jeffrey Tamkin. I'm with Public Facilities Investment Corp. My address is 11755 Wilshire Boulevard, Suite 2350, Los Angeles, California, 90025. Today we'd like to discuss public-private partnerships, which we have been doing since 1989. And tell you a little bit about what it is. A lot of states and cities are doing P3s throughout the country. P3 standing for public-private partnerships. Do I do this? Just
tap it. Yeah.
Our firm was founded in 1969. We've done over 200 projects now in 96 cities and 36 states, including projects in Dayton, Ohio, as well as in Brecksville, Ohio. And we basically, this PFIC specializes in the development and tax-exempt leaseback financing of public safety projects for cities, counties, and states throughout the country. We also do other projects such as working with colleges and universities and K through 12 charter schools, hospitals, and we also have a division that does roads, bridges, and tunnels. It's a comprehensive program, and basically what it does is it transfers the risk of the design, the construction, and the budget from the public sector to the private sector. And our main focus is that we expedite the development and financing, because as you are aware, construction costs are going up through inflation, and I'll let Kent, by the way, I'm gonna have my team introduce themselves individually, because they're all gonna speak. I think except for Jason and Chris, they're part of Brumba Construction, but they will, Kent, who's the Vice President of Brumba, will introduce them. PFIC development services include pre-planning and feasibility and site location work if a site has not been located. Under this situation, I think there is a site that has already been selected. We also take full charge and responsibility for the design and engineering as the developers, the construction. So, and we also provide 100% of the financing, as I mentioned. Those are both tax exempt, taxable, direct purchases, availability payments. What we do is we analyze all of the different types of financing to ensure that Beavercreek gets the lowest possible rate and terms. So we'll do ground-up development as well as renovation of existing facilities and asset monetization. The reason I'm getting into some of this is just so that you have a better background of what public facility does and what we can do. Our leaseback financing highlights the type of financing that we do provide with our program. Is at tax-exempt rates. Our rates are going to mirror the rates that the township would obtain if they were to issue bonds or go to the bank to borrow the money, but under our program, there's no need for the township to do that. Our program can go up to 35 years, subject to annual appropriation, which means that every year the township council has to vote to pay their annual payment. We have short-term financing available as well. It doesn't have to go out 35 years. It can go anywhere between 5 to 35 years so that we can structure our financing around any kind of potential grants or bond issues. It does cover 100% of the project cost, including furnitures and fixtures, and the lease payment never increases. It's flat for the entire term, for the entire 35 years. The township also has the ability to prepay the financing and cancel the lease at any time. And this financing not only can pay for land and buildings, I understand you already own the land, but it could pay for additional sites if you wanted to change the site, but also would fund any kind of equipment or technology that would go into the building. We can structure, and we do structure it around the township's revenues and cash flows so that it meets what the requirements that you need. In the unlikely event you were to use the building for some other purposes, maybe you decided to transform it, any additional revenues that the township could garner from that would be townships. We would not participate in that. So we continue to review all available financing options and sources so that you have the best possible deal. What I'd like to do is introduce Tim Bement from App Architecture, who will discuss a little bit about, well, I should say, I forgot. This is some of the projects where we're currently working in a typical public safety project in Montrose County, Colorado, which is currently under development. This is, we're adding 16 mental health beds, 16 maximum beds to comply with federal standards, and also a 30-bed community corrections facility. This is an existing public safety facility that we're currently underway with. Here's some other public facilities that we've done in McFarland, California, Yukon, Oklahoma, Palmdale, California, DeKalb County, Georgia, Fort Bragg, California. So we've done, of our 200 projects, we've done numerous projects and public safety projects throughout the country. And now I'll introduce Tim. Sorry.
I had a quick question for you
Yes.
before you escape us, though. On the leaseback financing highlight, at least the handout that you gave, and I didn't notice if it matched the slide. It says township can prepay the lease at cost at any time. Was it meant to say at no cost?
Right,
Okay, because it says at cost.
right.
Okay.
And what it meant at our cost, that's what it meant.
Okay, so with no prepayment
Right.
penalty, essentially.
Well,
is what
after,
you're
there
saying.
may be a lockout for maybe first 3-4 years, something like that, but we can negotiate whatever you'd like.
Okay. Do you do like a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, or as far as a prepayment, or what is it?
No, it could be just a point or two,
Okay,
but you do have that ability during that 35 years.
okay.
Okay. Tim?
Good afternoon. I'm Tim Beament with App Architecture. I'm a principal owner and we're located at 615 Woodside Drive in Inglewood, Ohio, 45322. And most of you know me already. I've been working with the township and the fire department on Station 65, the design, and we began back in 2017 and worked through all of 2018, most of it 2018 on the design, and through a different process, which was construction manager at risk, and took the project all the way through bidding. Unfortunately, 2018 was probably one of the most volatile construction periods that we had, and we were talking about it before we came over, that things have fortunately are beginning to settle down, and Ken will address that a little bit from Brumba. But we were in a situation where we had bid the project out, and numbers just came in very, very high. So up to that point, App Architecture has been working. We've have a lot of fire station experience. I've been personally designing fire stations since 1996, and have been with App Architecture now going on 14 years, and we've been designing a lot of stations in the Dayton area. A few examples there. Brookville Fire Station in Brookville, Ohio, has recently completed. Brumba, we worked together with Brumba on that construction on that project. Kettering Fire Stations, 3 of the 4, Brumba had constructed and we designed. And then the one in the middle at the bottom was up in the Cleveland area for Madison Fire District. We have other stations also that we're designing currently. So we always are constantly keeping up with the trends and requirements for fire station design, and looking forward to moving ahead with the township on no matter what process you decide to go with. So thank you. And I'll introduce Kent. Let's just click the front. Whoops, wrong way. There it goes.
Good afternoon. I'm Kent Myers, representing Brumba Construction. We're a general contractor out of the Darke County area, although most of our work is in the Miami Valley area. As you can see on the slide there, our projects match Tim's pretty close since we've worked together for the last 15 years. Actually, before that, when he was with another firm, he was with us through another firm too. We are a general contractor. We do both bridge and highway and commercial. I operate the commercial division along with Jason Willis and Chris Robinson. I've been with the company 41 years. So our experience in fire stations is quite extensive. We've done them, as you can see in there, those are our Brookville, Kettering, 3 out of the 4 Tim mentioned. We've also done Beavercreek, actually. We did Station 64, and we did a remodel and addition at 62. I can take questions later in regards to this process, but we have a great reputation. Tim mentioned a little bit about construction cost. It has stabilized a little bit here in the last few months. 17, 18, 19 were, he mentioned, volatile, very, very much, because the demand was great for construction. Labor was hard to find. Tariffs and other things that created cost increases, and you guys experienced that, I think, as you went through the last couple years with Tim's design on 65. But it's starting to stabilize a little bit. We help that process because we do have a great relationship with most of the subcontractors in the Miami Valley area. So they know us. We know them personally. They know us personally. We have the ability then to help control those costs through that process. We pay well. They perform well. We pay well. So it helps that process. As far as pricing, then I think the next slide probably, I don't know if there's in regards to, we do are good at bidding. Like I said, staying competitive. We would give a not to exceed number to Jeffrey here. So I will take questions if anybody's got questions in regards to that. So are you coming back up?
If it's in a future slide, then you can wait to answer until we get to that.
Okay, no, you feel free to
But,
ask any questions during the process.
But how does the money flow? So from the township to to,
It goes to a.
PFIC?
It goes to, it either goes to, if it's it goes to a 501c3. We have a 501c3 called Public Facilities Partners, which is an IRS-approved 501c3 that would actually, could then hire the architect and the contractor. I know the city is looking at maybe hiring the architect ahead, and he's already done the plans, but generally speaking, what happens is you hire a 501c3, now that can be us. It could actually be a local foundation or another 501c3, an economic development authority, could be the port, any 501, it has to be a nonprofit.
Right.
And the nonprofit then hires the architect and contractor and the developer. We then build it, and then the funds are paid from the bonds that we would issue. The tax-exempt bonds would then be paid to through a trustee bank. We'd then go to PFIC when pay requests were approved, and then we'd be responsible for the payments. And then, does that answer your question, I guess?
Yeah.
I'll stop mumbling then.
No.
And
Rambling.
then you carry the insurance on that?
Yeah,
building
we do,
also?
we do all the cost. The only thing that a township has to do is sign 2 leases. One is a ground lease for the land, which we lease on an unsubordinated basis so that the title is never affected by the financing or by the construction, always remains in the name of the township free and clear. And then a building lease. And then I'll say this later again, but I'll say it now, is that at the end of the lease term, say you let it run for the 35 years, we would then turn the ownership of the land and the building back to the township for $1 free and clear. So there's no appraised values, and if, as I mentioned, but basically our development steps are, if hopefully it's approved today, architects would then finish up the plans. They're pretty well finished, but we just review them again to make sure that they're adequate. Brumba.gh Construction would then give us a guaranteed maximum price to assure us and to assure the township that this is the cost, because you're signing the lease prior to breaking ground, and all the money is in the trustee bank also before it's broken ground. And we also ensure that as many local trades as possible are utilized to reduce the costs. We would then, as I mentioned, ground lease the land for 35 years on an unsubordinated basis. We would then provide leaseback financing for 100% of the cost through our nonprofit or another nonprofit that the township and Alex would prefer. Upon expiration of the lease, as I mentioned, we then turn the ownership of the project back to the township for $1. What this really does, there's really one main reason for hiring a firm such as ours, is that the integrated development process brings all the participants together early on, so we get the project done in a collaborative manner. We expedite come up with an expedited development schedule. And as Ken mentioned, construction costs have been going up rapidly. Now, a firm like ours, our main thrust is to expedite the project to get it up and going. The township has a lot of other concerns in running a township besides just building a fire station. So a lot of times, and this happens all over the country, that the towns, cities, counties, states, you know, they're working on a project and then some emergency comes up or they need the money for something else or the voters don't approve it. So it becomes a real problem. And so what our focus is to expedite the project to get it, because you want to, if you had built this station 2 years ago, it probably would have been, what, 15–20% cheaper, do you think, than it would be today? Maybe 10 to 15% cheaper. But construction costs continue to go up. We've been in it's a good time to move forward now because interest rates are an all-time low. And they're low enough that it really makes up for the cost of construction having gone up. But you would be transferring the design, the construction and financial risk from the public sector to the private sector, yet you still have complete control of the project. In other words, you could have somebody on a daily basis reviewing everything. You could have it on a monthly basis. Or you could say, look, you guys build it, and then when it's done, come and tell us. And when you cut the ribbon, you walk in and you say, it's exactly what we're looking for. We didn't put anything that you didn't want in, and we didn't take something out that you needed to have in. But it's a good alternative source of financing that does not require voter approval, and it enables the township and PFIC to focus on their core competencies. Ours is building buildings and financing facilities, which we've done 200, as I mentioned, in 96 cities and 36 states since 1969. And the township can focus on its focus of running the township public safety administration and the community service. I'm open up for any questions also that you might have.
And, Ms. Wallace asked a question, but I'm not sure, I'm not sure you understood the question
Oh,
from
I'm
an
sorry.
insurance standpoint. So, two pieces of that. So during the construction phase of it, from a bonding, either a performance or whatever you want to call it, from a bonding
Oh, yeah,
standpoint.
it would be bonded for
But
labor.
You're covering builder's risk.
All
All
of
of that
that.
is embedded essentially
Right.
in this, we'll call it project cost. But then beyond that, from a liability or all the different perils that could occur to that, we get a tornado hits it. From that standpoint, we're insuring the building through OTARMA or
Well, we would
is
work-
the landlord covering the insurance, or is
Well,
the tenant?
we would give you complete insurance, and if you didn't feel it was adequate or wanted to have additional insurance through another source, we could also pay those premiums as well.
Because we have a group program that we're involved with
Mhm.
through the state.
Right.
So, it
For
may
co-
be better pricing through our program than it would be for yours.
You're saying after the building was completed?
Correct.
Yeah, no, that's how, you would provide the insurance after the building was
Okay.
completed.
So during
Also-
construction, builder's
Right.
risk is
We
on
do
you, or
builder's
is in
risk.
the project.
And we'd also give a bond
Performance
for
bond.
labor, performance, material, and completion, so you're assured that the bills are gonna get paid and it is gonna get completed on time, on budget, and that's what our responsibility is.
But upon delivery of the project to the tenant, which would be the township, the tenant would assume the responsibility for insuring that property.
Right.
Okay.
As part of the cost of operating the building, that's correct. I'm sorry if I was,
No, it's
Yeah,
Didn't
good.
that's
answer it
why
right.
I do insurance, so
but
I
I'm gonna
kind of.
I'm gonna give you gifts. I brought some gifts.
I do have a question though. Usually when you have a normal insurance policy on a building, we would have to own that building. And since we're leasing the building, usually the leasor then insures it after it's built.
It can
So
go either way.
I'm not sure on Otama or
It can vary.
how that's gonna, we'll have to find that out.
Yeah, I know there's been other projects like this in Ohio, so we'll follow up.
Tag
with
into
it,
that.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Here's a gift, a little brochure.
Yeah, essentially, you'll treat this as an absolute net ground lease.
Yes.
Okay, so
Yeah, we have
effectively,
all
then
the lights
the
leased
tenant
on
is
that.
responsible for everything related to the building. It's very common.
Pass those down. Appreciate it.
I have the pleasure and the curse of being in commercial real estate, so
And this is information that you're passing out.
Right.
It's not gifts to us. I just want to make sure the public knows that these are brochures. Thank you. Just fine points.
Just in case the Ohio Ethics Commission.
Thank you for the correction.
So board, a couple things, if, just to point out, if we did do a traditional throw it out to bid, we're looking at potentially with some cost of 3.7 to almost 4 million. Working with this partnership, we could see a cost savings of, without the, just roughly, without having the guaranteed maximum price, $3.3 million. So, all the agreements are with our attorney, Brickler and Eckler, so we haven't had it back, so this presentation is to answer any questions that the board may have, and then address any additional issues, and then once we get all the information back from Brickler and Eckler, we could potentially move forward with this project.
So if we, this is, I guess, an internal question for the four of us and Alex and Dawn as well. So if we did a 10-year term or a 15-year term, I presume based on past experience that we would need to encumber those funds, the entire amount of the funds immediately, even though we're spreading that. No different than if we have a software maintenance agreement that's a 3-year agreement. We have to encumber the funds up front for the entire amount. So we would need to encumber these funds day one, I guess is what I'm asking.
In a situation like this, and I haven't read the details, I don't know, are we,
Well, it would be no different
If you're
than say, a lease of
Lease.
equipment or something.
Yeah,
You
right.
would,
That's what
you
I'm saying.
encumber the funds, but then you appropriate the annual amount.
The annual.
Yeah. You don't have to appropriate the full amount. What we would do, so for example, if the annual payment was $300,000, we would, through the budget process, temporary and permanent appropriations, ensure that that $300,000 payment was in there. No different than any of the other, like some of the software agreements that we have, although a lot less cost, but yeah, we would
Yeah,
just.
because I wouldn't
yeah.
encumber the whole amount
Yeah, we-
just at one
Set aside.
time.
Yeah,
They would just be
yeah.
on a.
Now,
Well, but so then how do you provide, from an assurance that it's election-proof? So, because a future board, decides not to approve that appropriation.
well, once you sign the agreement, that
Renewing it,
agreement,
yeah.
yeah. So, much like we do, for example, with, our payment back to the county for the super street. So, the agreement was signed several years ago. We're collecting the money now on the license fee tax and appropriate it, and then we get invoiced by the county to pay that amount. So, if, the interesting part is if the board at the time would say, no, we're not making the payment, we're defaulted the agreement. Well, for example, in that case with the county.
The other thing I'd want to just make a kind of a public clarification, in the slide presentation and in the discussion, it was mentioned that essentially it doesn't require voter approval. In our case, we did receive voter approval by means of a levy
Right.
that was voted on and approved very strongly, essentially, by the voting body. So what we're looking for is a way to contain and minimize the construction cost of the project. And then also, in piggyback or tag along to that, is take the funds that we know will be coming in through the levy and stretch them as far as we can, and potentially beyond the levy cycle. So, because in a bell curve of a levy, you collect more money at the beginning of a levy cycle than you do at the tail end. And so by investing that, we can actually offset a portion potentially of the interest expense. So a taxpayer might look and say, well, why would you pay interest expense on something that you already have the money for?
Right.
And essentially, it's essentially stretching those dollars by means of, if you can take the money and invest it, and you have more money up in the first 5 years of a levy cycle, you can make more interest than you're spending. And then by the tail end of that curve, it balances out, but overall you've spent less. It sounds complicated, but it's really not. So, but that's.
And by the way, on our financing, it's non-recourse to the township also.
Any other questions too?
I had none.
Well, thank you so much for the
Thanks, guys.
presentation.
Thank you
We
very much.
appreciate
Thank you.
the info, and we will get back with you.
Thank you very much.
Were you looking for anything today? as
No,
far as
just this information, and once we get the agreement back from, Breckler and Eckler, then we potentially may have it on the next agenda.
Okay. And
So
if
in the
you-
meantime, if you have any questions.
Once they've given it their red line through, if you can circulate that to
Yes.
the board, I personally would like to look
Yeah,
at it.
absolutely.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
gentlemen.
Thank
Have a
you.
safe trip back. Okay,
Board, just one second, while I move some things around.
all righty.
I did, thank you.
All righty. Old business, I don't believe there is any. New business, reorganization of the Board of Trustees.
Thank you, Board. On page 12 of your packet is kind of a guideline for the reorganization of the board. These are all the committees and association and memberships that we belong to, and I'm recommending we continue those.
I'll make a motion to nominate Ms. Deborah Wallace as Chair of the Board of Trustees for the year 2020.
I second that.
Mr. Kretz?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes. And I make a motion to have Mr. Kretz as Vice Chair of the Board of Trustees for 2020.
I second that.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kretz?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. I'd like to make one recommendation that Ms. Wallace remain the representative for the Regional Planning Commission. Ms. Wallace is on the executive board, and I would think that having Beavercreek Township on the executive board is very good for the township.
We work for it. Thank you.
I make a motion to appoint Deborah Wallace as the Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission representative for 2020.
Second.
Mrs. Dean,
Yes.
Mr. Kretz,
Yes.
Ms. Wallace.
Yes.
And we'll have to make an alternate.
I make a motion to appoint Tom Kretz as the Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission alternate for the 2020 year.
Second.
Mrs. Dean,
Yes.
Ms. Wallace.
Yes.
Mr. Kretz.
Yes.
Thank you, Board. Next two items I'm recommending for staff on the Technical Advisory Committee. I do recommend Mr. Amrine. He currently serves in that position as TAC, and I will be Mr. Amrine's alternate.
I'll make a motion to appoint Ed Amrine as the TAC representative for 2020.
I second that.
Mr. Kretz.
Yes, with discussion. If Mr. Amrine would accept that for the next 10 years? Otherwise, yes.
Mrs. Dean,
Yes.
Ms. Wallace.
Yes.
Tried.
I make a motion to appoint Mr. Zaharov as the alternate for the Technical Advisory Committee for the 2020 year.
Second, as the alternate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mrs. Dean,
Yes.
Mr. Kretz.
Yes.
Ms. Wallace.
Yes. Give my gavel to Mr. Kretz. And I make a motion to appoint Tom Kretz as a Regional Planning and Coordinating Commission of Greene County for 2020, representative for 2020.
I second the motion to appoint Tom Kretz as the representative for 2020.
Ms. Wallace.
Yes.
Mrs. Dean,
Yes.
Mr. Kretz.
Yes. I make a motion to appoint Ms. Wallace as the RPCC alternate for 2020.
I second the motion to appoint Ms. Wallace as the alternate.
Mr. Kretz.
Yes.
Mrs. Dean.
Yes.
Ms. Wallace.
Yes.
I make a motion to appoint Ms. Dean as the Health Department District Advisory Council representative for 2020.
A second.
Mr. Kretz.
Yes.
Ms. Wallace.
Yes.
Mrs. Dean.
Yes.
Thank you, Board. Next two are staff related. Currently, I serve with the superintendent and city manager. I meet monthly with the city manager. Essentially, I meet monthly with the superintendent too, but the three of us meet quarterly. However, most of the time, we're meeting weekly, it seems like. So this is just to make it official. In the past, we did have an elected official on there, but that was before the creation of my position years ago. So this is just something that we do every year to appointing me into that position.
Is that me?
Sure.
I make a motion to appoint Mr. Zahariev to the Public Safety, the representative for the school superintendent and city manager meetings for the 2020 year.
Second.
Mrs. Dean.
Yes.
Mr. Kretz.
Yes.
Ms. Wallace.
Yes.
Thank you, Board. Next one, I currently is serving as the civilian co-chair for the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base Restoration Advisory Committee. I would like to continue in that role. It is an honor to serve as the civilian co-chair for the region. And I did meet my new counterpart at our last meeting, so I'd like to continue in that role, please.
I'll make a motion to appoint the Township Administrator, Public Safety Director Alex Zahariev as the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base Restoration Advisory Board representative for the year 2020.
I second.
Mr. Kretz.
Yes.
Mrs. Dean.
Yes.
Ms. Wallace.
Yes.
Thank you, Board. The next two items are memberships for the Board. and for my position as well.
That year needs to be changed. Or needed,
The year needs to be changed.
Oh, here it says it.
okay.
I make a motion to approve the membership to the Miami Valley Military Affairs Association for the 2020 for the 4 elected officials and the township administrator.
Second.
Mrs. Dean,
Yes.
Mr. Kretz.
Yes.
Ms. Wallace.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve membership to the Coalition of Large Ohio Urban Townships, CLOUT, for the year 2020, and appoint Township Administrator, Public Safety Director Alex Zaharieff as the Township Representative.
I second.
Mr. Kretz.
Yes.
Mrs. Dean,
Yes.
Ms. Wallace.
Yes.
Thank you, Board. There is a CLOUT, the next CLOUT meeting, just for the Board's information, elected officials' information, is going to be at the Ohio Township Association Conference. Since we are members, you're all welcome to come. They do serve lunch, and they talk about the legislative priorities.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Board. Next item I have for you is just kind of something that needs to be cleaned up from years ago. Starts on page 14. There is a parcel, and I put a map on page 16 and 17 on Township Road that's in the city of Beavercreek off of Kemp Road. This was something that was turned over to the city of Beavercreek, and no one on either side can remember when it happened. But it is still in our name. The city does use it to store equipment there, mostly their light poles for different projects. I talked to the city manager and city staff about just cleaning it up. We couldn't go back and find anything that just said when or where it happened, but they're using it and they're okay with us just cleaning it up and giving the property to them. I do have a motion on page 18.
As we look at, you can pass those down. I'm passing out. So Alex, explain to us, this was a handshake transfer, or when did this transfer, and did it actually transfer? Because obviously from a deed perspective, a deed was never conveyed, correct?
That's correct.
Okay,
And
so-
going back, everybody can remember that there was discussion on it, whether or not it took place and never got recorded, which is what staff thinks happened, is it did take place, but just never got recorded.
Okay.
So, to clean it up, we said, let's just, take it back in front of the Board of Township Trustees, get it filed, and get the name changed,
Okay.
just for that parcel.
And I, fundamentally, I have no issue with, in fact, I brought it up a couple times as far as the light poles being stored there. In a quitclaim deed, Dawn, correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Frick, there's no opportunity in a quitclaim deed process to put any deed restrictions or reversion clause?
No,
Okay.
not a quick claim
And
deed.
so we had this discussion a couple months ago with regards to making sure that any piece of property we transfer, that either we put a deed restriction or some reversion clause on it, so that in the event that they ever decided to sell it, it would come back to the township first for $1. And I'm not trying to complicate it legally, except for the 75 acres that wraps around the back of it just went for sale for $4.3 million. And this piece would give a very nice little access to Township Road to that golf course development. And so the first question is, should we consider selling it? Or if we're gonna give it to the city and they're gonna sit on it in perpetuity to store light poles, then there should be some kind of reversion clause or right of first refusal to buy it back for $1.
Good catch, Mr. Kretz.
Well,
Again, not trying to complicate
Yeah.
it, but it's.
Yeah, but it's a good point.
yeah, the only concern I have is
If
what.
it didn't have adjacency to that 75 acres that the developer just put up for sale for $4.3 million, then I wouldn't be as concerned, but because it would create a nice little access to Township Road, it's worth $100,000 to somebody.
I don't disagree. I guess we could go back to see if we can find the original sell from the township to the
Wouldn't
I don't know if it was
Yeah,
sell or.
I guess if we were interested in potentially selling it, wouldn't that be the responsibility of the city to prove that we transferred it?
That, or we would have to look up in our records to see if it ever took place.
Okay.
When do you think it took place? I mean, are we talking the 80s, or are we talking the 90s? I mean, it's
Yeah.
before me,
So I would say yeah, it was during the split.
81, that area.
Yeah, I think it's,
Was there a search all done at the recorder's office, Billy, just make sure it's not updated online, but actually within the recorder's office?
according to the city staff, yes, that we can table this and I could go back and look. It's no hurry.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
it's been since
Been
80.
out there this long.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's taken this long, and the
Yeah.
fact that Mr. Kretz has brought this information to light, I'd rather sit on it and, you know, if we have an opportunity to create revenue for the township, I'm all for that, so,
Or at
Or at
least
least
prevent it from
get it
being
back.
flipped
yes.
overnight. So,
If we can find, you know, this may be a moot issue, if we do find something in the recorder's office that it was, or even when the division of assets took place, and it could have been in the original division of assets in probate court, between the city and the township when the city incorporated. So, I know where that stuff is. That's all in the archives, and I have some of it in a file in my office, so we could go back and look at it to see to list. You know, some of the parcels, I know some of the parkland, some of the parcels that the township owned in the, city, or while it was being incorporated in division of assets, the court said went to the city of Beavercreek. So this might be one of them. So, I could definitely do a little more research.
But we could, even in that case, you could still put a deed restriction on it, correct?
It would depend on what the terms of,
Sure.
when the
If
court,
it-
if they divided the assets, what the terms of those are, because very possibly no.
Yeah.
I mean, if the court ordered that particular asset to go to the city, I don't know that we could go back and put a deed restriction on it.
However, if it's not in there and it was another transaction that no one can remember, then yes, we could put that restriction as a part of this process.
Again, I'm not against the spirit of the concept of
Yeah.
moving it over. It's just just don't create a situation where someone could create a windfall. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we look like fools.
We can definitely do a little more research.
We're going to, pass on that quickly. Moving on to Greene County Sheriff's Office, the biweekly activity report.
Thank you, Board. On page 19 is the biweekly report, followed by your monthly report and some of the year-end numbers. That's all the year-end numbers on page 64 and through 74. Sergeant Moore's here to answer any questions.
Sergeant Moore, do you have any highlights or anything that you'd like to speak about?
I can speak briefly, just over some kind of total numbers.
Okay, great.
So obviously in Greene County, we have the big four departments, or whatnot. And just our year-end totals for the sheriff's office for calls. And when I say calls, these are anything that are in involvement. So, could be a traffic stop, could be a call for service to someone's house, could be, what we call like a radar patrol, an interaction with the schools, just a request to, sometimes we'll get called out, and all law enforcement have these, a call out and say, hey, I'm building this, can I? Well, then we direct them to somewhere else, you know, or things like that. But our call numbers for the county, we took 43,207 calls last year. And breaking that down for Beavercreek Township, for our staff that was out here, and then our other responding deputies that are absorbed with the other ones, we were at 12,437 calls. So again, defining calls as initiated activities and whatnot. And so that breaks down to there's an activity with law enforcement here in the township on average of 34 times in 24 hours. That something's being done, whatever that is.
Is that up or down as far as if you look at a trailing 12 or trailing 5 years? Are we trending up? Are we trending down? Are we flat?
We're trending up, but it's not a spike. It's not. But also I think the advent of this position out here again was also able to bring in some things as well too. So whereas there's an uptrend, I don't know that we're noticing any type of a trend in criminal activity. but I think we're seeing a definite uptrend in engaging in the community. More, so for example, I know scheduled next month, we're doing some of the Alice active shooter training with some of the businesses here. But we'll get a number for that. So that'll be a number of community engagement. So we're seeing an uptrend in community
It
engagement.
may not always be a negative engagement.
That's
It could
exactly
be
what
a
I'm trying to say,
positive
right. It can be, oftentimes, probably more often than not, is a positive encounter. But we want to track those events. And then also, as just part of our policy and most any other law enforcement agency, if we're interacting with a citizen and interacting with the community, that's just going to be a documented report of anything. So that's where those numbers are. Again, it just shows the activity within the community. And again, we're doing some sort of documented service on average 34 times in a 24-hour period. And I think it just shows our activity, that we are active in the community for proactive things as well as the response things that we have to do.
I think that's important to show for citizens to hear and to see the kind of activities that you are doing, so I appreciate your speaking on that. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you for what you do.
Thank you very much.
Stay
Be
safe.
safe.
Thank you, Board. Next item is job descriptions for an assistant chief position and division chief position. These are not typically red line because these are new, but I did provide a red line position based on, after Ms. Frick reviewed it, on page 1 in front of you. You'll see the highlighted change from what's in your packet, and it's adding "and prepared to perform fire suppression activities." That is the only change from the packet information. There are no questions. There is a motion. Well, I'm sorry, for at least those two. The fire marshal on page 81, because of if we approve the changes in the assistant and the division chief, obviously some of the report twos change. Ms. Frick also reviewed the fire marshal's position as well. If there are any questions, if there's not, there's a motion on page 84.
I make a motion to approve the job descriptions of assistant chief, division chief, and fire marshal as presented.
Second.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. Any questions on the biweekly report?
Thank you, Trish.
I had none.
I have none.
Thank you, Board. Next item is to appoint a vacancy. I did provide the job application, the application for the Board of Zoning Appeals in your packet on page 86. There are some redacted information there. And I do have a resolution appointing the new member to the Zoning Commission, and you could simply just pass a motion as presented. Mr. Amrine's here to answer any questions you may have.
I'll make a motion to approve a resolution to appoint Jonathan Hung to fill the unexpired term of Robert Guston on the Zoning Commission.
I second.
Mr. Kratz?
I'm sorry, I'll add to that, for a term to expire on March 31. Is the new term expiring March 31,
This is,
2020?
the initial appointment will be to fulfill an unexpired term that happens to expire in 2 months. We'll bring a reappointment resolution to you at that time.
Okay. If we can just reflect that in there, that it's the unexpired term expiring on March 31, 2020.
Right, that's not a misprint. It's
Just wanted to make
it's
sure.
the remainder of the term.
That's in your resolution, right?
Correct.
As
Yes.
presented.
Yes, it
Okay,
is.
if
Yep.
you send me that
Yes.
in Word, then I'll make sure I just
Yep.
put it in. Thank you.
Okay.
So, Mr. Kretz,
Yes.
Mrs. Dean,
Yes.
Ms. Wallace.
Yes,
Thank you, board.
Thank you, Maureen.
thank you.
Page 90 begins the biweekly report for the Miss Dean and Miss Wallace that were at the Rotary meeting in the state of the township. We did break last year's record on single family dwellings by one, 126 as opposed to last year, 125. So, Mr. Amright's here to answer any questions.
I have no questions.
When do we anticipate the county updating the average valuation?
I have a meeting scheduled with the auditor 2 weeks from now. So I'll be discussing any changes that he wishes to make in that interactive spreadsheet that he provides me.
You know, we'll have to add, in that spreadsheet, we'll have to add, obviously, the new levy, fire levy, as well as the school levy.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Board. On page 96 of your packet is the biweekly report for IT. Are there any questions? These, on page, just to point out, on page 98, those are correct, up-to-date numbers, as well as year-end numbers.
So where are we at with our IT agreement?
As mentioned, we'll be, in the budget meetings, we'll be exploring options for 2020 and making that presentation and potentially in a budget request for 2021. We do have phase 2 of the project to get through this year that will hopefully get brought to the board either at the next meeting or the first meeting in February.
So for 2020, are we staying flatline as far as cost then?
Correct. There's no cost
No increase, no
Yep.
decrease?
Yep.
Okay, that's where I was at.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you, Board. Next item's on page 99 of your packet. And I apologize, this will probably be one of the larger packets for the year, but first item under the Road Department's purchase request for cemetery mapping. This was discussed, 2 opportunities where we talked about mapping the current sites in the cemetery. One was at the special meeting and then budget meeting. Budget justification starts on page 99 with a motion at the end. Just to point out, this will be a general fund expenditure.
Well, I'm happy to see this coming to us. I think it's we've waited long, and I think it's gonna help our citizens and, of course, your department and everybody involved on having placements on all the plots, so.
Well, and this will be the final phase of our audit that we've done. And by doing this project, it takes some of the human error out of it.
Right,
So once this is done going forward, we're not relying on the memory of the guy that was here before us.
and just to recap our new trustee and the public, why did we initiate this? Or just a brief summary, Mr. Parks, and what it will do for our cemetery and for your staff, please.
Actually, this all started from a sale. And those graves were showing up in the software as available. Well, we went and started going back to the deed books and stuff to issue a new deed. They weren't available.
Right.
Which kind of made everybody look bad
Uncomfortable.
and very uncomfortable. And currently the way we do it is we find the last burial, say in that row, we find the vault, and then we measure 40 inches at a time until we get where we need to be. There's human error there. What this will allow us to do is every lot will have 4 corner pins in the center, you find the pin, and you're on that lot. You just go from the corner pin over, and you're not measuring, we'll say 100 feet. Because if somebody gets off 2 inches here, by the time you get to the end of the row, you could be off by 2 foot. Which becomes very uncomfortable when you're dealing with a death in those people's family, and you have to go to them and say, I'm sorry, we don't have enough space to get your vault in. So this will clean all that up and give us a very accurate map of what's there. Part of the reason we chose this vendor is he will do from start to finish. The second phase of this project is to do some subsurface imaging to actually see if something is there, if there's any questions.
Is that every site, or is that a random?
What we're gonna do is lay it out, and they do like a magnetic, which is a lot cheaper. We have built into this 150 sites so that the agreement is not to exceed.
Just need to do a checkerboard, obviously.
Yeah, a checkerboard, and between his technology part of it and my staff's familiarity with certain sections, I think we can get a very accurate number. And we can come in under this price, I hope. So,
For public knowledge, then our objective is to map out our cemetery.
Right.
To make sure our plots are within where we think they should be. We'll know where they are so that we can have any confusion as to a burial site or non, and what is available and not in our township cemetery. In addition, because so old, how old is our cemetery?
we have graves dating back from the church to about 1850.
So because of the age of our cemetery and what's happened in the years and the new technology, we want to make this as accurate as possible for those, so that those people that have burial requests can be smooth and know exactly where they're going to be placed, their loved
Correct.
one. Thank you very much, Mr.
You're
Parks. Any questions? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve purchase request 10172. Do you have the request there? Just make sure it's the right number. 10172 to Historic Archaeological Research for mapping, layout, and subsurface imaging for the cemetery in an amount not to exceed $47,650, and authorize the township administrator to sign for the board.
I second that.
Mr. Kretz,
Yes.
Mrs. Dean,
Yes.
Ms. Wallace.
Yes.
Thank you, Board. On page 104 is the biweekly activity report for the road department. Are there any questions?
Did we have any trees go down based on the winds that we first had this last week?
This last weekend? No.
I just saw Nate Xenia City had taken some down across, by the
Right.
high school there, right
Yeah.
across the road.
This time of year, we're very proactive in going out and trimming and cutting out the dead stuff. So I think we're ahead of the game.
Right? Hey, that's all we can ask for.
It saves on overtime in the end.
Any questions to Mr. Parks?
I will say, spring is only 6 weeks away.
Thank you so much.
February is only 2. February is only 2.
Yeah, well, I'm going with that.
It's coming on,
theory.
winter's not here yet. Those 60-degree days.
Thank you, Board. Next item is under the fire department, starts on page 105, is to request the modification of the authorized staffing levels. Fire chief is here to answer any questions.
Anybody have any questions?
Can you just give us a quick prelude into why we're doing this?
Yeah, so as we've previously discussed, we were looking at the organization and how it reflected our actual functioning processes now, and they did not align. So what we're doing is recommending converting back to a more traditional fire service model, which is a fire chief, assistant chief, division chief model. That allows us at the division chief level to have a number of peers that can be cross-trained and rotated through positions, either for development or for other needs of the organization. And so all the documentation here, both the job descriptions and then these couple resolutions we have, bring our organization back into that alignment.
You have any questions?
I make a motion to the resolution to modify the fire department's authorized staffing levels as presented.
Second.
Mrs. Dean,
Yes.
Mr. Kretz.
Yes.
Ms. Wallace.
Yes.
Thank you, board. And obviously for the signature box, we didn't know which titles to assume, so we laid it out as generically as we could for the first meeting of the year.
No problem.
Thank you, board. Now that we took care of number one, we have to update and approve the fire department's organizational chart. Fire chief is here to answer any questions.
And so this is just the graphic representation of that document and the job descriptions. And it does tie into the township's overall organization chart. So if you see the expanded one, it's on it's either a lot smaller font or a lot bigger piece of paper, but it does tie into the overall township, including the conversations we've had regarding the Fire Prevention Bureau and the zoning department.
And the org chart that's in the packet essentially is the.
Yes, it's just probably
No
a
difference,
slightly
but-
different perspective.
But no
in scope.
change as far as
Correct.
fundamentally or material who's underneath.
That is correct.
You have this in the form of a resolution or?
Just a simple motion.
Just a motion, okay.
Questions? Do you have any questions?
No.
I move to approve the fire department's organizational chart as amended.
Second.
Mrs. Dean,
Yes.
Mr. Kretz,
Yes.
Ms. Wallace.
Yes.
Thank you, board. Next item is request modification of resolution 2017-013, and that was the fire officers benefit. This one here is also just kind of fixing everything we just changed and then adding the names who fill those positions. Fire chief's here to answer any questions. There are no changes from what's in your packet, so you could just pass it as presented.
And this is essentially the third generation of this. Originally, it was two separate resolutions. Back in 2017, they were consolidated into a single resolution, and this just updates it, as Mr. Zahari said, with the new titles and then the one additional name, which is hopefully we'll be promoting this afternoon.
Questions?
Hold on one second. I'm sorry, Alex, on this piece of paper that was slipped down, which item are you on?
That's just the motions. You can bring that back. We're actually on item number 3.
Which is a standalone resolution, so there's no motion
There is no
language
motion.
because
Yeah.
it's the resolution.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we decided to mix it up a little bit in this meeting, first one of the year,
That's fine.
so.
That's fine.
So you have a resolution for the first, but not for the second, not for the third.
We have a resolution
First
for
and
the
third.
first and the third,
Okay.
and then
Motions.
simple motions for the second, fourth, and fifth, I believe.
Yeah, which is what you have there, Mr. Kretz.
Correct.
And then sixth, which is really sub A, B, and C.
Yeah. So. If there's no other questions, we could just do it as presented.
I make a motion to approve a resolution modifying the prior resolution 2017-013, the chief officer's benefit definitions, as presented.
Second.
Mrs. Dean,
Yes.
Mr. Kretz,
Yes.
Ms. Wallace.
Yes.
Thank you, Board. Next item's on page 105, or 105, is request to modification of the Fire Department Work Rule 5000.001, which is personnel deployment. Chief will explain this one, because we have two in a row.
So the first work rule that we're looking at, personnel deployment, we had some definition updates. Those definition updates are what we just talked about as far as the names of the positions. We had one change in note 1 of the table, which is where the staffing changes a little bit. And basically, this is with the hiring of the last 9 that we did about a year ago. As they are coming onto the vacation and EDO accruals of a one-year employee, there is now more leave available to employees than our system had allotted. And so we need to open up one additional spot of vacation so that people can take the accrued leave that the township is giving through the contract. And so what this does is it addresses that specific issue to allow those 4 people off during the vacation and EDO pick cycle of the contract. And then I believe that was the only substantive change. And then there was a third and final change, which is we added a reference to the OIC work rule. The work rule existed, it just wasn't directly referenced in this, so we added that cross-reference. So those are the 3 changes.
And those changes are noted on page 110 of your packet and 111. They're only, just to clarify, this is something we talked about with labor management, they're only be able at vacation time to pick that 4.
Yes,
During
and that's
vacation
actually,
periods.
that language specifically is in the second work rule
Right.
we'll look at. These 2 work rules go together. This one is where the people are at, and it has essentially the line of, and the notation for how many people may be scheduled off in a shift. And then the second work rule, the one that we'll look at next, 5112.001, is what designates how many are allowed off and when they can schedule that time. So they do work hand in hand.
I'll make a motion to approve Fire Department Work Rule 5000.001, personnel deployment as amended.
I second.
Mr. Kretz?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. Next item's what we just talked about, it's on page 106, and that's the staffing and leave scheduling policy.
So, and similarly to the first work rule, there are the term changes for the assistant chief and division chiefs that we previously discussed. And then in 321, you'll see highlighted that the 4th off can be picked during annual vacation picks, which is a contractual process that we have. And then the second highlighted area in 322 is what actually directly refers back to the chart that we just amended in 5000.001. So again, they're very tightly related, but they have to kind of go together like this, and that's why we have both of them in front of you today.
I'll make a motion to approve Fire Department Work Rule 5112.001, staffing and leave scheduling as amended.
I second.
Mr. Kretz?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. Next item's on page 106 is request acceptance of resignations. I don't believe we got anything today from Bays, do we?
We don't have a date, but we can probably do the motion to have the effective date to match the agreement with the employee. It's essentially 12 weeks.
No later than what day, though?
It's in the agreement, so when we have the signed agreement, if you reference the agreement in the motion, the agreement will have the date.
When will we have the signed agreement? We were supposed to have it today.
I believe we have it for discussion during the executive session.
We could come back.
So,
Then
yeah, we can
need
come
to
back
table
into the
that.
motion afterwards.
Yeah, we need to
Yeah,
table that.
table.
Yeah.
So I'll need a motion then.
But we will need a motion
for the
for the
other
next
two,
2, the resignation of the 2 firefighters.
So firefighter Berg is leaving. She was offered a full-time position in, I believe it's Trotwood, which is where she came from. And so that's one she's been looking forward to, so it's an opportunity that she couldn't pass up. And then firefighter Sims is changing careers, so taking a different approach. So we've lost one to farming, and now we're losing one to real estate. So.
It's not what it's cracked up to be. I'll make a motion to accept resignation of firefighter Tara Berg effective January 10th, 2020.
I second.
Mr. Kretz,
Yes.
Mrs. Dean,
Yes.
Ms. Wallace.
Yes.
I move to accept the resignation of firefighter Robert Sims effective January 25th, 2020.
Second.
Mrs. Dean.
Yes.
Mr. Kretz,
Yes.
Ms. Wallace.
Yes.
They were both excellent
We wish
employees.
them the best of luck.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Sorry to lose them.
Thank you, Board. Thank you.
That's all I had for the board, unless you have any questions for me. We are rebuilding our biweekly activity report, so we should have that up and running again by next meeting.
Great.
We did finish 2019 about 13% over 2018. So
If you took the tornado out of that,
that's one of the things I'll have for you. It should be a little bit, I think it was about 10% was tornado and 2% was growth, but I'll verify that for you for the next meeting. And there was, some of the additional growth was related to Bath Township as well.
Sure.
So I'll have all those pieces broken out.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Board. One last item. In our audience today is Seth from Beavercreek High School. He is applying for the Ohio Township Association Scholarship Program. And you're going where next year? College of Worcester.
Great place.
So after the meeting, he'll have a document to sign. He sat through a long one today, but. Board, that's all I have.
Okay. Fiscal officer.
I think.
Oh,
Alex,
sorry,
you
legal
still
on
have-
I'm nothing, I was just gonna add, I've known Mr. Hung for a number of years, who you just appointed to the zoning commission. I think he'll be a good addition
Great.
to the zoning commission, but
Thank you.
otherwise I have nothing.
Now fiscal officer.
Alex, I think you have the resolution?
Yep,
Thank you.
got it.
This is just our annual resolution to certify to the county auditor to get our taxes upfront, not wait.
I move to make a motion to accept the resolution to request a tax advancement from the Greene County Auditor for the calendar year 2020, as
Second.
presented.
Second.
Mrs. Dean,
Yes.
Mr. Kretz,
Yes.
Ms. Wallace.
Yes.
Go through this portion first.
Oh, that's right. We have meetings to go through. Sorry, I'm skipping through. MVRPC, the meeting was canceled for January. The next meeting will be in February. MVRPC Technical Advisory Committee. Thank you. Regional Planning and Coordinating Commission of Greene County.
I don't have anything to report.
Nothing.
Health Department District, I have nothing to report. The meeting will be in March, is what I found out.
And I will send an email to the health department letting know that Ms. Dean is now the appointment for the township. So get you added to the email list.
Thank you.
School Superintendent, City Manager, Township.
We are talking about several projects that are going to affect the community. Obviously, in the joint meeting with the Beavercreek School Board, we discussed one which would be some roundabouts in the unincorporated area, and one that also affects the township and the city. I do have a meeting scheduled with Ohio University, the superintendent of schools, and the county engineer next Friday to discuss one of those projects. City manager and I continue to meet on tornado-related issues. The debris removal contract should be signed tonight at City Council. As the board knows, you already gave me the authorization in August, I believe, to sign it. The county administrator also has the authority to sign it, as well as the county engineer. So once it's approved tonight at City Council, we'll move forward with the debris management side of things, and that is grinding all the debris. And then also hauling it off of the two sites, the CMAC site in Fairborn and the environmental service site in the city of Xenia. So those are the two that we continue to really discuss on a regular basis. And Restoration Advisory Committee was a very lengthy but very good meeting regarding with some of the restoration sites that are affecting not only Wright-Patterson Air Force Base but the surrounding communities that are adjacent to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. I did provide the board the presentation that we made at the public meeting, also with some information of some of the cleanup equipment that they have installed out at Wright-Pat. There will be some additional information that is put out working with the city of Dayton, Montgomery County, to discuss some of the things about water. One thing I recommended, because Dayton sells water back to Greene County, parts of Beavercreek and parts of Beavercreek Township, Sugar Creek and Bellbrook, that information is also shared with the Greene County residents as well. And that's all I had.
Great. Investment Oversight Committee.
The committee met last week, and we met with, is Jan here? So we met with representatives of Huntington Bank, and so the meeting was focused on two topics. One was on better ways, essentially, to manage our operating, we'll call it dollars or funds. And they presented two different approaches. And at the end of the day, even with paying fees, there's been a reluctance apparently in the past to go down a path where there was a fee-based relationship, but it required a minimum balance be kept in those accounts. And what we explored and what we've determined is that based on their product offerings today with different types of accounts, there's a blended process where we can actually keep a substantial amount of money in an operating account, but the majority of that can be interest earning at a much higher rate than what a traditional checking would earn to offset fees. When you look at it, the different, and we'll have a presentation, essentially a recommendation from the committee at some point, but it essentially allows you to take the same dollars that we've had sitting there and employ them at least 130 basis points or potentially better, versus 30, 35 basis points that essentially we've been earning on those funds. So the second piece of that discussion was looking ahead and again looking at what we discussed basically with PFIC, with taking the levy dollars that will be coming in, building a ladder that would mirror essentially whatever term we did on that funding mechanism, for lack of a better term, for Station 65 and eventually 66. So that essentially put those dollars to work early as they begin to come in at the end of this first quarter, beginning of the second quarter, and then use those earnings to offset any essentially interest expense that we're using as a mechanism to drive the cost of that stations plural down. So long story short, we'll make more money. We have the opportunity to make more money on the money we currently have sitting in a checking account, and we'll have the opportunity to ladder out our levy funds so that we can offset and actually make more money than we're spending to build the station. So.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kretz. Greene County Township Association will have a meeting next Tuesday at the Health Department. And anybody wants to go, please RSVP.
Yeah, I will not be able to attend, but I thank staff and
I'm
somebody
going,
like to push.
Is that
We are
next Tuesday or tomorrow?
That's tomorrow night.
Oh,
I was gonna say.
tomorrow
You said
night,
next
yeah.
It's tomorrow night.
Which is the next
We're
one.
hosting
Yeah.
February. I hope to have a location determined probably sometime this week, but we already have the topic, which will be, I'll be asking Enterprise Fleet Management to make a presentation.
That'll be good.
Yeah.
To educate more communities. Alrighty. Trustees, do you have anything that you'd like to comment on? Mr. Kretz?
And just a couple things. Number one was belated welcome to Miss Dean, and you made it through your first meeting so far.
So far.
Ain't over yet. And then a thank you to Michelle Grogan for putting on and planning the event
Did a nice
for
job.
the firefighter recognition event. Much appreciated. It was a very nice, well-attended, packed house. Wanted to reiterate just to the public that might not have been at the meeting or heard from the meeting, I did pose a handful of questions to the school board relative to their thoughts and what they're considering with regards to a new high school and new capital projects, essentially. And I posed those questions relative to the tax burden that's placed on commercial real estate, and specifically taking into consideration that essentially when a property transfers and the revaluation process. And we went through in that meeting the residential growth in the township, which is typically the high focus, but what tends to get glossed over is the high commercial development in the city. And at some point, we will have commercial development in the township as well. And those commercial development dollars that do generate school tax revenue. And I used an example of a property that was, in 2017, was being assessed at 1.5 million. That property sold for 4.4 million in 2017, and is currently, the school taxes essentially went up almost quadruple. As far as the amount of tax that is being allocated to the school. So the total property tax went from $35,000 to $105,000 per year for that business. And so when you look at that and you extrapolate that across the entire city of Beavercreek and the commercial development, so the new construction that will be coming on the tax rolls, as well as properties that essentially are just being reassessed at higher values because they're selling at higher values than when they were purchased. So to take that into consideration and be very careful with their messaging. So it's not against the project or for the project, it's just creating an awareness to them. So I asked them for some deliverables. I haven't received them back yet, but I'll follow up with the superintendent. And then as far as from a staff, just wanted to say thank you for 2019. We accomplished a lot. And for 2020, we have a fair amount on our plate as well. So thank you for everything that you did. That's great. Looking forward to 2020. And we need to maintain and really keep improving. We've accomplished a lot. With that, did the recognition committee meet with regards to, I don't know if the chamber is doing or not doing anything again this year, but what are we doing as far as recognizing?
Yeah,
employee of
that'll
the
be
year?
something we do in the first quarter. The breakfast, I believe, that the chamber puts on is in April or first part of May, so
Okay.
we'll definitely have it.
I know Mr. Amrine headed that committee.
It'll get together before Mr. Amrine leaves.
Okay. Before
And
you,
I have a lot of things to do.
okay. Just making sure you didn't forget it. That's it?
I'd like to reiterate the awardees that received the recognition on Saturday night. And I want to make sure that we have those names and put in the In Touch magazine so that the community can, I know Michelle Grogan was fire employee of the
Meritorious service.
meritorious service. And there was several other awards that were fantastic, so I want to make sure that we publish that and let the community know. Any other comments? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Yep, I'll make a motion to go into executive session under Ohio Revised Code, section 121.22G1, to consider the employment, dismissal, and compensation of public employees, and under Ohio Revised Code, section 121.22G5, matters required to be kept confidential by the federal law or regulations or state statutes.
I second.
Mr. Kretz?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes. So we will go into executive session, any of those, and then we will come back and then probably adjourn. We're back in session.
Motion to come out of executive session.
Make a motion to come out of executive session at 3:30 PM.
I second.
Mr. Crick?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes. Have a motion?
We're not adjourning, we're gonna take a break.
And we're gonna take a motion.
Oh, we can do that as well, sorry. Make a motion to extend the unpaid leave of absence for Justin Davis and, to February 11th, 2020.
I second.
Mr. Crick?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes. We're gonna take a break until 4:30 when we'll reconvene. Thank you.
Thank you, Board.
After having a brief recess, we are reconvened at our Beavercreek Township meeting. So, Chief, turn it
Well,
over to you now.
Thank you, Board. I appreciate you making extra time with us today. It's been a busy few weeks, and you spent a lot of time with us, and we are appreciative of that. So, today we have a couple of items of business. First is something that we don't typically do for a civilian position, but because we have everybody together, we wanted to take the opportunity and ask your permission to hire a new fire prevention specialist. With the authorized staffing level, we are short one full-time fire prevention specialist, and so today we're recommending that we hire Randall Carroll as a full-time career fire prevention specialist. Randy joined us about not quite a year and a half ago. He's exceeded our expectations for what we were hoping for, and with that, I'd like to recommend that we hire him full-time, and we look forward to a long career with him in fire prevention.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve a resolution hiring one fire prevention specialist. Whereas the Ohio Revised Code, section 505.38A requires Board of Township Trustees in each township with a fire department to provide for the employment of firefighters as it considers best. And whereas on effective January 13th, 2020, a resolution authorizes a staffing level of 2 fire prevention specialists, and the department is currently staffed with 1 fire prevention specialist. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Beavercreek Township Trustees hereby hire Randall Carroll to the position of civilian full-time fire prevention specialist with contractual years of service beginning on January 13th, 2020 at the prescribed rate of pay and benefits in accordance with the Beavercreek Professional Firefighters Collective Bargaining Agreement. Further be it resolved that all actions of the Board of Trustees concerning and relating to the adoption of this resolution are being adopted at a duly called and authorized open meeting of the Board of Trustees on the date set forth above, such meeting being duly called pursuant to and in compliance with all legal requirements, including section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code.
I second that.
Any discussion? Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Excellent.
Thank you very much, Board.
Thank you.
And if Randy's here, could we have him come up and we'll do a photo with you guys? I figured he was, I just hadn't seen him in the media yet. Thank you, Board. And our next item is related to Chief Young's retirement. He celebrated with us about a week and a half ago. He's here in the crowd, so enjoying retirement. And with his departure, we had a vacancy at the newly redesignated Division Chief level. And today it's my honor to recommend for promotion to the position of Division Chief a member who demonstrates the knowledge and skills that exemplify the professionalism and pride of Beavercreek Township Fire Department and our commitment to the citizens of Beavercreek. The position of Division Chief manages one of the fire department's strategic positions. They provide strategic leadership and guidance to subordinates in order to achieve fire department goals and objectives in service delivery, planning and quality improvement, and technology and administrative support. They also provide emergency response scene incident management. Captain Leanne Brewer began her career in 1989 with Mad River Township, but shortly after was hired full-time with Beavercreek Township Fire Department. She was promoted to lieutenant in 1995 and to captain in 2017. Lee has taught EMS classes for Sinclair Community College and Wright State University. She's been a member of the Beavercreek Township Fire Department Honor Guard, the EMS Training Division, the Fire Training Committee, Safety Committee, Public Information Officer since 2010, and managed the Fire Gear Program. She was a CPAT test proctor for the Miami Valley Fire and EMS Alliance, and she administered the first CPAT test and several after, which provided standardized physical testing in the area for fire departments. She has led several levy campaigns and leadership roles and a grant writing team that secured a grant to replace SCBAs to be compliant with NFPA standards. The very same SCBAs we're looking to replace with another grant to maintain those same standards. Lee has coordinated a program through Local 2857 to adopt a family at Christmas every year and provide food and gifts. She has also organized an annual community drive through the fire department to collect items to send to troops overseas. Between 2010 and 2014, Lee taught members of the fire department and residents of Grand Court and Beavercreek how to make Ukrainian Easter eggs as an activity during Easter. She's also organized groups from the fire department to work on the Christian Youth Corps' home makeover project for the Galleon Siamese twins so they could move in with their brother into Beavercreek. Other missions she was instrumental in was sending boxes of fire gear, boots, and helmets to Panama Fire Department that had little to no fire gear value at all. The gear was still in good shape but unable to be used due to NFPA standards. Lee is certified as a paramedic, level 2 firefighter, fire instructor, EMS instructor, arson investigator, fire safety inspector, hazmat technician, swiftwater rescue, rope rescue technician, ice rescue technician, and blue card incident management instructor. She's completed Fire Officer 1 through 4 programs and has an associate degree in fire and EMS administration. Lee has received several awards, such as the 1993 Beavercreek Township Employee of the Year, Safety Committee Investigator in 2002, the Beavercreek Township Fire Department Outstanding Service Award, and Greater Miami Valley Fire and EMS Council Service Award in 2004, the Chamber of Commerce Firefighter of the Year in 2010, Fire and EMS Unit Commendations in 2011, 12, and 13, plus a Firefighter Cross in 2013, and a Firefighter Commendation Medal in 2019. Need another page. Today it is my pleasure to recommend to the Board of Township Trustees that Captain Leanne Brewer be promoted to the position of Division Chief. And because we have these all three, we can either read all three bios and then do one resolution, or we can do the resolution and follow with the bios.
Let's do all three bios.
Okay. With Leanne's promotion, that leaves a vacancy at the captain's position. And today it's my honor to recommend for promotion to the position of captain, Lieutenant Lee Polis. Lee Polis was born and raised in Xenia, Ohio. Lee attended Miami University in Ohio, where he earned a Bachelor of Science in Business degree specializing in human resources management. He began working as a manager at a microbrewery and for some local physicians as a medical tech. After talking to family acquaintances and taking part in ride-alongs, Lee realized the fire and EMS service is what he wanted to do for a career. He received his firefighter and paramedic certifications from Sinclair Community College, and then Lee began part-time with the Beavercreek Township Fire Department in August of 2003 and was hired full-time in June of 2006. Lee was promoted to lieutenant in August 2015, and while with Beavercreek Township Fire Department, he earned his EMS instructor, Fire Officers 1 through 3, Rope Rescue Technician, Vehicle Extraction Technician, Confined Space Technician, Water Rescue Operations, Ice Rescue Technician, Hazmat Technician, and Elevator Rescue certifications. Lee's awards consist of 2 Fire Unit Commendations, 2 EMS Unit Commendations, and a Firefighter Commendation Ribbon. He has also been the C Platoon EMS Shift Trainer, a member of the Greater Miami Valley EMS Council, and a member of the Operations Committee, an accreditation committee for EMS, and a project manager for new medic purchases. Lee is happily married to Lindsay for 11 years, and they are proud parents to Savannah and Jackson. Traveling, running 5Ks and half marathons, snow skiing, and spending time with family are Lee's favorite things to do when he's not at work. And today it's my pleasure to recommend to the Board of Township Trustees that Lieutenant Lee Polis be promoted to the rank of captain, which leaves a vacancy at the lieutenant's position. So, it is today my honor to recommend for promotion to the position of lieutenant, a member who demonstrates the knowledge and skills that exemplify the professionalism and pride of the Beavercreek Township Fire Department and our commitment to the citizens of Beavercreek. The position of lieutenant is charged with managing the day-to-day operations and readiness of the individual fire stations and personnel, lead their personnel in training, initiating and monitoring task-level assignments at various emergencies, managing programs and program budgets, and overseeing the development of the personnel they work besides. Lieutenants report to captains. I am recommending to you this evening that firefighter Doug Ransdell be promoted to the position of lieutenant. Doug was born and raised in the Miami Valley, where he also welcomed 2 children, Courtney and Devin. Before devoting full-time career to firefighting, Doug served in the United States Army until he became an auto mechanic and met his wife of 9 years, Natalie. Serving the Beavercreek community for over a decade as a highly versatile individual, Doug has actively been involved in many programs within the department. He took pride in being involved in the SCBA program and managing the street directory for the apparatus, just to name a few. He is currently the fire training coordinator within the Fire Suppression Division. He is a rescue squad officer on the Ohio Region 3 strike team and a rescue specialist on the Ohio Task Force 1 FEMA Urban Search and Rescue team. When Doug is not on duty, you can find him tinkering in his garage, camping with family and friends, or his favorite title of all being Pawpaw to his 2 grandsons, Oliver and Huxley. It's a great honor. It is with great honor and excitement that Doug takes his next step in his career. He hopes to continue to move forward with the ever-changing fire service while encouraging, molding, and teaching the next generation of firefighters as a lieutenant. And with that, it is my pleasure to recommend to the Board of Trustees that firefighter Doug Ransdell be promoted to the position of lieutenant.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
I move to make a motion to adopt the resolution promoting a full-time division chief, a captain, and a lieutenant. Whereas the Ohio Revised Code Section 505.38 requires a Board of Township Trustees in each township with a fire department to provide for employment of firefighters as it considers best, and whereas resolution passed by the board on January 13th, 2020 includes 3 authorized division chief positions, and whereas the fire department is currently only staffed with 2 division chiefs, and whereas the promotion of a new division chief will result in a vacancy of a captain and subsequently a lieutenant vacancy. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Beavercreek Township Trustees hereby promote the following officers to their newly designated rank effective January 13th, 2020 at the prescribed pay rates of pay, benefits in accordance with the current township pay scale and Beavercreek Professional Firefighters Collective Bargaining Agreement. Captain Lee Ann Brewer to Division Chief, pay step L. Lieutenant Lee Polis to Captain, pay step I. Firefighter Doug Ransdell to Lieutenant, pay step F. Paramedic. Further be it resolved that all former actions of the Board of Trustees concerning and relating to the adoption of this resolution are being adopted at a duly called and authorized open meeting of the Board of Trustees on the date set forth above, such meeting being duly called pursuant to and in compliance with all legal requirements, including section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code.
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Kretz?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you. And with that, you should have an oath for each of those individuals.
Right.
What order would you like to do them in?
I'm sorry?
What order would you like
We'll
to
do
do?
the.
We'll
chief-
start with the division chief, please.
first. Division Chief Brewer, will you please rise and we'll give you the oath of office. I'm so proud to be able to do this with you. I hereby certify that we have on this date promoted Leanne Brewer to the position of full-time division chief of Beavercreek Township Fire Department. That appointment is to take effect today, January 13th, 2020. I'd like to raise your hand and speak after me. I, Leanne Brewer, being duly sworn, say that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Ohio, and will faithfully discharge the duties of Division Chief of the Beavercreek Township Fire Department, Greene County, Ohio.
Thank you.
Say it now, chief.
Wish we could give it to them today.
I can find my stamp.
No stamps.
Is that okay, Randy? Okay.
Lee Pullis.
I hereby certify the honest date promoted Lee Pullis to the position of full-time captain of the Beavercreek Township Fire Department. Said appointment to take effect of today, January 13th, 2020. Raise your right hand. I, Lee Pullis, being duly sworn, say that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Ohio. And I will faithfully discharge the duties of captain of the Beavercreek Township Fire Department, Greene County, Ohio.
Randy, what'd you do to the poor kid?
Alex, so we're gonna take a break again for the.
Just turn it back over to me. I'll say, hey, we have a few more things. I'll ask everybody if they want to stay for the meeting. Okay. I'll get a roll.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Doug Ransdell?
appointment to take effect January 13th, 2020. I, Doug Ransdell, being duly sworn, say that I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Ohio, will faithfully discharge the duties of lieutenant of Beavercreek Township Fire Department, Green County, Ohio.
Congratulations. Those are the promotions that we have for the board today. We look forward to filling the vacancies that were caused by these and some other actions in the near future, but thank you very much for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Chief. We have some other actions to take forward, Mr.
Yeah, board, I have a few more actions to take with the trustees. So please head outside if you want. You can stick around for the rest of the meeting or go out and enjoy some punch and cake. So
We'll be
thank
calling
you.
folks back for photos here in just a couple minutes.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, board. Sorry to reconvene after this. I did, during the break, receive another resignation that we discussed earlier in the meeting, so I did receive that. I have two motions there to move forward with the resignation.
Okay. And so, we would move to approve the agreement and then
Yes.
accept.
Yep.
So I'll make a motion to approve the agreement and release related to Christopher Bays and authorize the township administrator to sign on behalf of the board.
I second.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
Ms. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
And I'll make a motion to accept the resignation of firefighter Christopher Bays effective April 6, 2020.
I second.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Motion to adjourn.
Want to make a motion?
I make a motion to adjourn today's meeting.
Are we sure?
Is there anything else?
And we're adjourned. Thank you very much.
Can I grab